Hi folks, so if you've been using Python for any length of time, sooner or later you'll run into something called list comprehensions. Now it sounds like a complicated name, but it's actually fairly simple. A list comprehension is a way of copying all the elements or some of the elements of one list into another list. It's as simple as that. For example, I have a list here. It's called A. It has all the color names in it. And if I want to copy all the elements of A into a new list, and that's easy enough, right? I can just set B equal to A, and if I now print it out, you will see that B now has all the elements of A, as you would expect. But what if I want not all the elements, but only certain elements depending on some condition, right? Now, one way to do that would be to define a function that goes through all the elements of A and decides which ones to put into B and which ones not to put into B. So I'll define a function here called picksum, and I have a for loop which goes through all the elements of A. And then I have the if condition, which actually picks the elements that I need. And the expression that I'm using is if red in X. So I only want those elements which contain the word red. And if they do contain it, then I append them to B. Of course, I have to define the variable B up here as a blank array. And then within the function, I'm going to append the elements to it. Now I can just call the call the function. And if I run it, you see that I get red and light red, and that's because of this if condition over here, because it only picks up those elements which have the string red in it, and only red and light red satisfy this condition. So you only get two elements in B, which is what you would expect. I can also do one more thing. Before appending them, I can turn these strings to uppercase, and if I run it now, I get red and light red in uppercase. So this works as advertised, but involves the definition of a function, and then you have to call the function, and it's a lot of lines of code. A list comprehension will let us do all of this in one line of code in a very compact and easy to read way. So I'm not going to comment out all of this and do this as a list comprehension. So we start with B again, and B is equal to the square brackets for array. But this time we put all the logic in it, and we're literally going to take parts of this function and put them in this line. So we take the for loop first, and that's always going to be there in a list comprehension. Put it in the middle. Then we take the if condition and we put it at the end after the for loop, right over here, and that's our if. And finally we take this expression, which is x dot upper, and we put it at the beginning. And now we have a fully working list comprehension which sets B to certain values of A, and it has the exact functionality as that entire function up there. And if I run it now, you see that I get the same result, red and light red in uppercase. So it's a nice compact way of doing the whole thing in one simple line of code. And that's what list comprehension does for you. So I can actually remove the expression here and just have X here instead. And if I do that, it will not turn into uppercase, but it'll still work. I undo that. Also, I can get rid of the if condition if I so desire. And if I run it like that, I get all the elements, and they're all turned to uppercase. So, having the if condition or the expression is kind of optional. You can use them with or without or in any combination. In fact, let's step back and look at all the parts of a list comprehension in a diagram. So to summarize the syntax, the basic syntax of a list comprehension, the most simple form, you have basically a list, which we're going to call my list, and you want to create a new list from it. And so you say, new list is equal to square brackets x for x in my list. This for loop is always going to be there, and this will get you all the elements of my list into new list. Then you can add an if condition to the end, and this if condition will then apply to all the elements, and only those which satisfy this condition will travel back to x and into the new list. And this expression can be any legal expression for the data type x, which returns the true false value, of course. Then you can also add an expression here. So in this case, you start with the for loop, you apply the filter to each element, and the elements which satisfy this filter are then passed on to this expression, and the result of the expression is then passed on to the new list. And that's the most sort of detailed form of a list comprehension, because it contains all the elements, the expression, the for loop, and the if condition. And finally, just for completion, just remember that if you are using an expression, you don't have to use an if condition. You can just use the expression only, and the for, of course, will always be there. And in this case, all the elements of my list, because there is no if condition, will be passed to the expression, and the results will be passed on to the new list. And that's basically the format of a list comprehension. Thanks for watching, and leave a comment if you have any questions.